Okay, I'm going to start us off, and then anyone that joins us as we go along will join us. So good afternoon. Welcome to Export Insight UAE, hosted by Marine Industry News in association with the GMBA. I'm Lindsay Hall, Commercial Manager of Marine Industry News. We are the fastest growing news brand in Europe with over 12,000 subscribers to our daily newsletter. So please sign up if you haven't already for the most up-to-date news. Please keep your microphones on mute and direct all questions you have through the presentation into the chat function directly to me as you think of them. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. I'm now going to hand over to Shaun Parsons, Sales Director at PSP Logistics, who are kindly sponsoring our event. Shaun, take it away.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Shaun Parsons of PSP Logistics based in Hampshire, England. We're an international freight forwarder that deals with all types of freight around the world, but also have a dedicated marine division that looks after yachts and motor yacht shipping, and as well as marine spares. We also are heavily involved with super yachts, where we're delivering equipment to them wherever they are in the world. And our involvement with the Middle East has increased even more in the last 10 years, especially with new boat manufacturing in the area, where we are now shipping boats from there to the Med and also to USA. And it's a nice developing area, and we feel that we can help many people with that area and that route. And we hope today we're able to discuss and hear some good news about the Middle East and how things are developing and how business is growing in a good fashion in the marine industry.
Thank you, Shaun. I'm now going to introduce Kai Malmivaara from the GMBA, who will be presenting an insight into the United Arab Emirates marine market. Please remember, if you do have any questions, please use the chat function. Do not turn your microphones off mute. Thank you very much. Over to you, Kai.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kai Malmivaara, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to give this presentation of the boating market in United Arab Emirates. I've been living in Dubai since 2005 and working all that time in the marine industry. So first, some background information concerning United Arab Emirates, because not many people know very much about the country. Abu Dhabi is the capital of the United Arab Emirates and is the biggest emirate. They have also more than 90% of the oil and the wealth. The ruler of Abu Dhabi is also the president of United Arab Emirates. Dubai is then a business hub which been building up since the early 2000s, and now the population is a little bit bigger than in Abu Dhabi, 3.3 million, and is growing. Then there's a Sharjah, which is next to Dubai, which is more or less, as we call it, the Manchester of UAE, where the small industry is located. And then we have the so-called Northern Emirates, the smaller Emirates, Ajman, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah, which is on the Indian Ocean side, and Umm Al Quwain. So altogether, about 10 million people live in the United Arab Emirates. It's probably the most international country in the world. There are more than 200 nationalities, and the locals, Emiratis, represent a little bit more than 10% of the population. Somebody has said that Dubai is the cleanest Indian city in the world. We have about 30% Indians, and then we put together Pakistanis. It's about 40%. Why I show this? I show that about 82% of the population out of the locals are not a typical boat buyers. So most of the populations are for service or for working for the building industry. So actually, the clientele consists mainly of the locals and then Western expatriates. So in that sense, the amount of people who actually can afford and are interested in buying boats and have the ability is fairly small. The total coastline of United Arab Emirates is about 1,300 kilometers, about 820 miles, but much more if the man-made islands are counted in. If you think about the boating, the main boating areas are really Abu Dhabi and Dubai, to a certain extent Ras Al Khaimah and Fujairah, which is on the Indian Ocean side. Abu Dhabi is actually ideal because they have lots of islands and the mangroves, and it's quite sheltered. Dubai, on the other hand, is mostly open sea, as you can see from the map, and you're not really, you don't have much sheltered areas, so it's a bit different in that sense. Ras Al Khaimah is close to the Strait of Hormuz, which is another nice boating area. And then finally Fujairah, which is on the Indian Ocean, as I said, which is good for diving and fishing. So what about the development of the boating business in United Arab Emirates? The local boat manufacturing has been in place since early 80s, but there were not really any imported leisure boats until 2003. Probably the reason is that in 2002, law was changed and free zone areas were established, and people were able to buy the apartments and houses in UAE. So the market started to grow. So, companies like Do Boats, which represented Ferretti and Benetton, Art Marine, Azimut, and Galdari, Sunseeker, Westermarie, Marquis, Prestige started to operate then. But unfortunately, the market overheated in 2006 and 2008, and many of the companies had large inventories, believing that the market will develop favorably. But as we all know, in 2008, there was a financial crisis and the sales dropped also in the UAE dramatically. So it took about 5 years to realize and sell the inventories of these companies, and practically no new imported boats were sold during that period. Only the inventory was realized, and prices were very much discounted. And since then, the market for imported boats has been quite weak. Many expat potential buyers did lose their jobs and left the country. And the locals still remember the discounts and expect to get them. And so market is in that sense quite difficult. No one is willing to build any inventories now, and most of the previous import companies have ceased their operations. Import business is now quite limited, and nobody wants to build any inventory. But talking about local manufacturing, United Arab Emirates is the main country in the Middle East where boats are built, and they have quite a long history, as we said, about that. There are about 100 boat builders who build between 600 to 800 boats, all sizes, per month and per year, and majority of these are sold in the other Middle East countries, but also internationally. Especially the biggest Gulf craft, which has brands like Majesty, Oryx, Nomad, and Silvercraft, are selling majority of their boats now outside UAE. Then there's Al Shali Marine, AS Super Yachts, Megaland Shark. These are the two ones which make sort of larger size boats. Then we have sort of other manufacturers who mainly make the sort of small fisher type of boats, or for military or professional use. So about the distribution of the boats now, yes, there are, most of the brands are represented, but as I said, there's no inventory, so all the sales are done through brochures, and the boats are ordered for the clients. But brands like Ferretti Group, Azimut, Prestige are presented. Prestige is doing actually quite well at the moment. They are quite price competitive. Lagoon Veneto, and also sort of the typical suspects, Princess Yacht, Sunseeker, are represented. However, at the moment, and as I will be saying also in the future, the sales are fairly limited compared especially with the local manufacturers. Then when we come to the accessories and spare parts, one can say that the market for marine equipment in the United Arab Emirates is quite saturated, and most of the main brands are represented there. If you want to set up your own business, then the best onshore company is needed for imported goods, and the companies need to be registered as a vendor for the Cameron entities. So mainly for this reason, the best way to enter into the market is to find a local distributor. Finally, there seems to be one distributor which is dominating the market, which is called Exalto Emirates. There are some smaller ones, but they don't seem to be playing very important role. Exalto stocks about 100 international brands, and their clientele consists of all kinds of companies, both local boat builders, service companies, governmental bodies, etc. And they do distribute to all other GCC countries and African countries. So in that respect, this is like a focal and central point for the accessory sales. If you would like to get a better analysis of the companies operating in the area, I mean, the boat show is naturally a good place to visit and see all the major players. A word of warning anyhow, as I said, I mean, you got to be quite careful whom you're dealing with and also the payment terms can be harsh and collected receivables challenging. One has to remember that now there's a 5% custom duty and 5% VAT for the imported products, but that's for everybody. So as a conclusion, UAE can be a good place to do business as it is logistically central, but one has to look at the areas around UAE, Middle East and African markets as a whole. Regarding the marinas, there are presently about 42 marinas operating in United Arab Emirates, and surprisingly a little bit more than 7,000 berths. Total number of marinas in Dubai is about 17 and about 3,750 berths, and then there are some dry berths in addition to that. Similar amount of marinas in Abu Dhabi, 17 and about 2,500 berths. Then in the Northern Emirates, nothing significant. Ras Al Khaimah, 4 marinas, Fujairah 2, Al Quwain, about a few 110 berths. Which is kind of interesting is that the low average occupancy of the marina is about 73%. So if we have like 7,000 berths, only 70%, a little bit more than 70% are occupied. In Northern Emirates, it's a little bit less, it's 60%, and Dubai 65, and Abu Dhabi 81. So there really is more berths than boats, and everybody is hoping and expecting that more boats can be sold and these marinas filled, because there are also 40 new marinas under construction or awaiting for commissioning. The boat park, there are no real statistics available about the number of the leisure boats in the Emirate, but the estimation is around 15,000, 10 to 15,000 boats altogether. Many of these boats are on trailers or parked in private residences. As you can see, if we have 7,000 berths, and not all of them are occupied, so the other boats have to be somewhere else. Typical boats are with center console, outboard engine, mainly used for fishing and made locally. Boats over 45 feet, there are only about 1,000 of those. So basically 14,000 of the boats are smaller than these ones. So boats up to 12 meters are the most popular, partly due to the driving regulations, because you can get the driving license easier for boats which are up to 12 meters. Everybody needs to have a driving license anyhow to drive whatever type of boat in the United Arab Emirates. Average age of the boats relatively old, about 2009 or older. As I said, not many boats were imported since the financial crisis. And one interesting thing is that there don't seem to be many sailing boats in the United Arab Emirates. They claim that there's not enough wind, but I think that it's partially due to the fact that it requires a little bit different skills than driving a motorboat. I think UAE would be ideal for that, because you don't have so many places where to go with a boat, and you don't need any places with a sailing boat. You can just go out sailing. As I said, there are certain matters that affect the boating, which probably prevent perhaps some who would be interested in buying a boat to do that. You need a sailing permit from the Coast Guard every time you go out. On the other hand, the clubs and the marinas do that on behalf of you. Annual registration is required, which is pretty, should I say, painstaking procedure. It takes about half a day, and it costs a fair amount of money. Partially in Dubai, practically in Dubai, there don't seem to be much places where to go. There's a lack of destinations. And there are also security-related issues, vicinity of Iran, and on the other hand, Somalia and Yemen. Summers are very hot, but anyhow, during October to May, the weather is ideal. And cost of berthing is also very high if you get the place in the marina, but then service is also very good. One very important thing is that there's lack of finance for imported boats. So if you buy an imported boat, you need to have the cash, and this puts the local boat builders in better position, because they can have and they have payment plans. So basically, very few expatriates have the resources to buy a boat, and there's also uncertainty how long they're going to be in there, because most of the people come there for a job which may last 1, 2, or several years. There are 3 major boat shows in UAE. The main one is Dubai International Boat Show. It's been 29 years since it started, and it's always held in March, except last year, and due to the pandemic, there was no boat show in Dubai. But it is a main boat show in Middle East and subcontinent and Africa, in Asian subcontinent Africa, and the amount of visitors is about 2,700 to 27,000. Then there's a new boat show, Abu Dhabi International Boat Show, which is held in October. It was first time held in 2018, and now it will be held this year again, so it's as a second time. It's a government-backed boat show. The clientele is mainly local visitors, and when they organized the first time, they got like 21,000 visitors. Then the smaller boat show is Dubai Pre-Owned Boat Show, held in November, first organized 2017. There's both used and some new boats in there as well. And this is a special year for Dubai, because there's also Expo 2020, which will be organized between 1st of October to 31st of March. It was postponed with 1 year, but now it will take place, and it is believed that it gives also a boost for local economy and tourism, and possibly also leisure boating market. Finally, we have a leisure marine association now in UAE. It's just been set up, and they are now collecting the members in there. Basically, they bring together all the stakeholders in United Arab Emirates, but also in Middle East and North Africa. So this is the territory which they operate. They are endorsed in various UAE government authorities and supported by local boat shows. And now they also a partner of ICOMIA and assist them in the ICOMIA Marine Conference, which will be held in Dubai now in October. They're cooperating also with the yearly International Superyacht Summit in Dubai. So we hope that with this association, there will be sort of united voice and we can achieve many good things what we want to in order to develop the marine industry in UAE. What about the market development and outlook? The marine market has slowly climbed since this sharp drop in 2008 till 2016. But then there was another slump in 2017 and it stayed in par in 2018. So basically the market hasn't been very great. 2019 started to rise again, but we all know what happened. And then 2020, there was about a 40% drop in March and May due to the lockdown. But in UAE, that same thing has happened in UAE as in the rest of the world. Since then, the market has increased and it's been very healthy. There's some lack on the material supply, especially in the high-end boat builders, but they have a good order book at the moment, and it seems that the development may continue. But the question really is how sustainable it is. But at the moment, everybody is fairly pleased, and the business is doing all right. So what are the sort of observations and conclusions relating to the market? Basically, one can say that UAE has a strong maritime history stemming from fishing and pearl driving and dhow trading. There's a lot of interest for larger boats in UAE than in the other GCC countries, but in general, it's believed that UAE market size is bigger, and the boats are bigger than they actually are. Generally, I guess UAE and Dubai is good in marketing and giving an impression which is positive, but the fact is that the market is smaller than most people believe. If you think about UAE only, but as I said, I mean, UAE is a good place also to cater to the neighboring markets. Also, it's true that number of mega yachts are owned by GCC nationals, but on the other hand, very few of them are in Gulf. Most of them are in Mediterranean area. There are some super yachts in the UAE. But the UAE government is interested in promoting super yacht industry in Emirates as a center of yachting in Middle East, and there are sort of 6 months cruising permits for the boats and multi-entry visas for the cruise. Then, as I said, completion of new marinas has led into oversupply of berths and undersupply of boats, although the number of boats are growing, but not in the same pace as berths are coming to the market. Some marinas have not been really built for commercial purposes as such, but to increase the value of the surrounding land. So, and this is happening in particular in Dubai. And to make the boating more lucrative in Dubai, particularly, new destinations and services need to be created, and this Leisure Boat Association is really working hard on that and trying to sort of develop the boating and the locations. Yachts are mainly, if you think about the use of the boats, yachts are mainly used for entertainment. They very seldomly leave the marina. Fishing and scuba diving seem to be the only real uses, but still relatively small part of the amount of total boats. And the rest of the boats are mainly for cruising and anchoring next to beaches and day out. As I said, sailing would be ideal, but as I said, suitable winds and lack of skills may be the reason for a relatively small number of boats. Again, lack of financing of imported boats, it is a problem. Average range, price range of the new boat is between euros 250,000 to 350,000. At the moment, the consumer appetite seems to be more for the used boats. And during the last year, there's been also an increase of this various rental clubs where you can share the boat. And this may cause the fact that less boats have been sold. But for example, Gulfcrest is now focusing more on the smaller leisure boats in order to get reach sort of, should I say, the average buyers who cannot afford all the super yachts or even yachts. So they are concentrating on sport cruisers, fishing boats, overnight boats, and small cabins, really bringing the threshold down for customers to buy a new boat. Finally, I can say a few words about the other markets in Middle East. Basically, only Qatar has more boats than United Arab Emirates, but Qatar, it's mainly divided with fishing boats and the yachts. The owners are mainly locals there. Saudi Arabia, the same. There are not many marinas in Saudi Arabia. There are about 36 marinas and 3,000 berths. Qatar, there are like 7 marinas and 1,500 berths. So really, United Arab Emirates seems to be the center of boating as it is at the moment, and mainly due to the fact that we have so much expatriate people there who are willing to buy a boat and are interested in boating. But okay, I'll leave it from here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kai. It was very interesting and informative. I would now like to open the Q&A session and just go through the questions that we have been sent over. Bear with me 2 seconds. So, as there are no trade media publications in the UAE, how would companies go about promoting themselves to potential distributors?
I think that the boat shows are the main should I say, places where the promotion happens. There are some magazines which are printed in Arabic language as well, but they are not local ones. But I think boat shows are the main should I say, vehicle for this.
And what would you say is the most important first step for a company to make in order to successfully export to the UAE?
It depends. If we talk about equipments, I think the most important is to find a local distributor for that. And as I said, UAE is a good place logistically. so that they can actually cater the other GCC countries and also Northern Africa and some of the Indian side. So basically, it is important to find a reliable partner locally, and well, we seem to have one major one.
Would you say if someone could only afford to go to one of the boat shows in the UAE, that the Dubai International Boat Show is the best way for people to network with that particular industry?
Absolutely, no question about it.
And obviously, I mean, you mentioned Qatar, which is slightly separate to the UAE, but they've had quite a lot of involvement with sailing and sailing races. Do you think there might be something in the future to do with the UAE and the America's Cup to try and maybe promote sailing and as a skill that people might be interested in learning?
Yeah, you have to remember that a few years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I guess it's, we had the Volvo Ocean Race in Abu Dhabi, and there was a particular marina built for Volvo Ocean Race. And so I definitely believe that they would like to promote this, especially these international events. I mean, that's pretty much in accordance to their strategy and marketing strategy.
And finally, are there any yacht clubs and powerboat and sailing schools in the UAE?
There is one very old sailing club in Dubai, which is the Offshore Sailing Club. It was established in 1974. They organize sailing lessons, and it's a very nice old club as such. But regarding then training for boating, as I said, everybody needs a driving license to drive a boat in UAE, and there are several schools or institutions which organize these, and depending on the size of the boat, and so that's where the should I say, the education happens and training happens. Then most of these marinas organize certain trips, they call it safaris, and together with those there's some training sessions as well, but they try to activate anyhow their members and to go sailing and try to find the places for the sailing, but that's only for the motorboats.
Right. And you said the equipment market is quite saturated. Is that true of sailing boat deck gear, given there is little sailing?
That's a good one. I think that the equipment market is very much, the clientele is very much the local boat builders, which are and who build mainly motorboats. So I'm not specialized, to be honest, in this, but I believe that that there is not as much supply for the sailing market as there is for the motorboat side.
Thank you. This question is for Shaun. What is your experience of exporting and delivering to the UAE?
Yeah, the important thing is to have someone local that can help with the arrival of it. We have a very good agent there that works well with us, but yeah, it's not an area we ship a lot to, but we've started to move a lot from. So we're working with Golfcraft, European dealers, and a couple of small boat manufacturers that have started up in the last couple of years that are dealing with ribs and tenders. But yeah, it's imperative to have someone local to deal with that, because there are local rules and taxations that need to be looked after, and that is the key. I think the same for anything in the Middle East. It's your local agencies that are the key to getting things done correctly.
Thank you. That is all of the questions that we've been through. So I want to thank everybody for attending. I hope you all found it beneficial. Thank you specifically to Kai and to Shaun, and look forward to seeing you guys again at some point soon.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.